Good evening, Brendan.
Oliver Pritchard, how are you? How is everything down in the deep south? I jest, of course, kind of in the more centre part of Bogota. All peaceful tonight, or what? Have there been?
I'm on a northern calle. I mean, that's how un-deep south I am. Yeah, everything's been pretty quiet today, to be honest. Feels, dare we say it, it feels surprisingly normal.
Yeah, be careful saying that. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get out to Port del Norte tonight because I was otherwise engaged. But on my cycle back from where I was, on 127 up here to the far north, which is why I always call your place the deep south, and you know, less people might think that I'm in Richville. I'm certainly not in Richville at all. This is Estrato Dos where I am. I'm with the people from the barrio. But yeah, I didn't get out to Port del Norte, so I don't know. But from what I gather and looking at the headlines, there's been no disturbances here, but maybe in other parts of the country. But I know we're going to get to that anyway, Ollie, and we have a busy show, and we've been wrecking our brains because, guys, if you were president of Colombia, what would you change in this country? Yes, that's the big topic question we want you to answer on tonight's Bogota Nights, Colombia's only live and interactive English language chat show. If Ollie, for example, took up residence at Casa de Nariño tomorrow, he'd start demanding that the police actually enforce the laws they are supposed to enforce. I'd see to it that all companies pay... Yeah, exactly. Isn't that a strange concept? And I'd see to it that all companies pay double time to any employee forced to work more than 8 hours a day. I've got skin in that one, previous anyway. That's just a flavour of what we change, but we want to hear about your ideas. From the serious to the silly, the functional to the fantastical, from the inspirational to the inane, we'll consider all your presidential proposals. Indeed, word has it, President Duque is watching and taking notes. Send your changes to us right now by using the live comment facility, and it will appear here on our screen, your comments. Or if you're watching this recorded, you can still get involved by commenting on where you're viewing or via tweet, the handle being @BogotaPost with the hashtag BogotaNights. This show, remember, is all about viewer interaction, so do get writing in, guys. Before we get into the hypothetical, it's our news review where we had another hyperactive week of protests across the country. If these protests have done anything since they started on the 20th of April, it's that they've managed to move news of the COVID-19 pandemic down the pecking order. For some, that's welcome. For others, not quite so. So, Ollie, where are we at with this paro nacional, or national strike, if you will? Is it petering out as the government engages more with those behind the movement, as we alluded to at the start?
It's certainly petering out. I don't know if the reason is because Duque's at the negotiation table. I find it very odd, Brendan. I've talked about this quite a lot this week. I find it really odd that everybody criticizes Duque for being inept and inefficient and useless, which, you know, it's pretty hard to say that he's not. Yet they've all been clamoring for him to arrive in Cali. I really don't understand this thing. If he's a bumbling fool, what good is it going to do having him present at the negotiation table? Anyway, yeah, he's down there. He's throwing out bones to the protesters. But to be honest, the protests have been in free fall for about a week now, and you know, there's no sign that they're going to spark up again. That may well change next Wednesday. That's been on the cards for a long time as a big day of protests. But for now, pretty much, I think everyone's just a little bit tired. The big question, Brendan, is, are they tired and regrouping for another push, or are they tired and going to sleep for a long while?
Well, interesting. Now, in fairness, as we said, this is all about viewer interaction. And Jacob, those sentiments were on the tip of my tongue when Ollie was saying, well, like, why did people want him to go into Cali? Yeah, he is the president. He should show up, Jacob Tom saying, because he is the president. I get that. But even he managed to make an absolute mess of his visit to Cali, deciding to leave at midnight on Sunday night, or arrive there at midnight on Sunday night and have 4 hours when everyone's pretty much asleep, and then ran off again back to the comfort of Bogota, in inverted commas. But of course, he did then go back again. But like, it just seems he can't get anything right at all. But coming back to that bigger question, Ollie, like, I'm kind of intrigued about this, because one could be forgiven if you were to read certain international media and focus on certain groups in Facebook, that there are hundreds of thousands of people on the streets for these protests. And even if I was to double the number of people I saw in various marches in Bogota, it wouldn't even get to 20,000, in fairness. And that's taking all the major points, concentration points from yesterday, because just to restate, if people aren't aware, yesterday was kind of another big push of the national strike after the strike committee met with Duque on Monday and didn't reach any meaningful agreement. So the idea that, like, okay, or I should say, La W Radio did have figures from a pollster, 700 people surveyed. So again, you can read into that what you will. But close to 80%, or 75% of people said they were in favour of the protests. Yet, well over half said they wanted the protests to end. Now, in fairness, I think sorry, for anyone who's listening, because I know that you know that I've read that as well. Over half want them to end now. Yes, to end now, exactly. So, sorry, yes. But to be in favour of the protests, I think that's kind of understandable. I mean, if you ask anyone, they'll be kind of going, well, yeah, like, we want a fairer country. I think there might maybe a few very rich people are out of touch mightn't agree with that, and want certain things. But amongst the protesters, like, it kind of came to my attention, for example, when the taxi drivers joined some of the protests. And I'd be thinking a number of those protesting are probably against yellow taxis, or certainly not in favour of what they'd be calling for, because they want Uber and all that kind of stuff. So in the nitty-gritty of it, it's a very divided protest in terms of what everybody wants. But anyway, guys, and we do invite your comments on that, what you feel about it. In terms of some concessions, we do have one relatively big one. It's kind of almost like a trial run. Can you fill us in on that, Ollie?
Pardon?
The one kind of concession that came out this week from Duque.
Yes, I see what you mean. Yes, a trial run. Yes, I see what you mean. Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to put the two and two things together. You're talking about the education, the yes. Tertiary education. Yeah, it's a very minor concession, but there's two ways to look at this, basically, Brendan. One way is to sort of say, look, it's a very quick concession. If we assume, and I can understand why people would be sceptical of this, if we assume that the government is negotiating in good faith, then this is a really good sign of things to come. It's kind of saying quite early on, look, we want to give you something as well. That's if you're being positive. If you're being slightly more negative, you can say, look, it's not that much of a concession in reality. It's not proposing all that much. Cutting it to what it actually is it's basically free education for people in public universities from stratos 1, 2, and 3. The problem with that is that not everyone is from strata 1, 2, or 3. Those strata already pay very little for public education in Colombia. Matriculation costs are not very high. It will be incredibly useful for the people that receive it, but it's also not necessarily going to cost the government a lot. So, there's kind of two ways to look at this. You can be very cynical, or you can be a bit more optimistic.
Well, in terms of there being so many demands, one of them, wasn't there a minimum wage for everybody who was officially classed as being in poverty? And I think the good numbers guys at Bogota Post came up with how much that would cost the state.
we shan't take credit for this. It was La Repubblica which did the number crunching.
Okay, but like something like 7% of GDP, so it would cost an awful lot. So it comes back because there's been a lot of comments going on about, this is more than tax reform. It's about the inequality, police abuse, the state-backed killing of innocent protesters. Everything's thrown into the mix. But you kind of think, well, you have to start somewhere. I mean, inequality is just not going to disappear tomorrow with some magic wand. So like to do that, you have to bring in these progressive taxes, measures that will help those less well off, tax the richer citizens and all that kind of stuff with these progressive taxes. So it just kind of seems that with so many demands, everybody wanting their kind of piece of cake, that I just don't know where, like they have to start somewhere, but it seems that no matter what they do, they get it wrong. Now, of course, that's down, you could say too, to just a completely out of touch administration, but we're going to be stuck with it for another year.
It's interesting you mention inequality. One of the things that's really interesting is that actually it's almost certainly because of growing equality in a way. Colombia is far more equal now than it has been. There's a bit of a jump up recently probably because of the pandemic, also because of a very weak peso. But Colombia, look, in the past 20 or 30 years has been on a downward slide in terms of inequality. It's been getting more and more equal every year. Life in Colombia gets significantly better every year. And what's really interesting is that many people don't perceive it to be that way. And in part, that's because there's more people are better educated, more people are better communicated, more people have access to see what they're missing out on. And so it's this weird irony that actually as the country becomes richer, more equal and better off, it actually starts to feel like it should be even, and rightly so, incidentally. I mean, if we had a Gini index score in England, as we do in Colombia, people would be rioting immediately. But it is interesting, I think, that, Colombia is actually moving in the right direction generally, but people don't see it that way.
Well, you made a point last week, I'm not sure was it in last week's show or privately to me, but like it's the idea that when you do your situation improves in terms of your socioeconomic situation, so then you kind of feel that next level is now reachable and you want to get there.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, look, people are not going out, people are not kicking off in Honduras, they're kicking off in Chile and Colombia, not Paraguay and Honduras, which are extremely poor countries, with horrifically high inequality levels.
Yeah, no, that's true. And again, guys, we do welcome your comments and do put your thinking cap on in terms of if you were president, what would your solutions be to the current mess that this country finds itself in, or the quagmire, and how they get out of this troublesome situation. And outside of that, what would you change? It can be something more humorous or fantastical as well. We do want to hear your thoughts. We'll be getting into that in more detail in the second half, just after 9:30 Colombian time. Ollie, again, we spoke last week when we focused fully on the protests. It's hard to decipher fact from fiction, from what exactly is happening. You've got NGOs saying that about 40 protesters have been killed linked to the protests. Then you have the Fiscalia saying that I think it was only 15, if I'm correct, were directly attributed to state authorities, whereas that figure will be disputed. A freelance journalist who's on assignment in Cali right now for the New York Times sent me a Twitter message this afternoon, Sergio Almas, to give him his name, if I'm pronouncing his surname correctly, Almas, but he's United States based, but he's in Cali now, of this video where it shows two police motorcycles passing this guy in the street and apparently just opening fire on the guy and shooting him, which, well, it looked like they were fatal shots. There's so much content, there's so much out there, it's hard to know. And then we had a high-profile death, which I know the Bogota Post wrote an article up on it, a touching article as well, of this Lucas Villa in Pereira. So the deaths are continuing. There's still all this uncertainty. If you're of a certain persuasion, it's kind of, well, it's the police just reacting to vandals, and then there's communist and left-wing forces in this as well that are stirring it all up. And then if you're of another persuasion, it's all to do with the government, state authorities backing all this violence and trying to kill their own citizens. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think one of the really big problems in all of this is that actually it doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter if things are true or not. People have already made up their minds. And Lucas Beer, the case of Lucas Beer is a really tragically obvious part in that. At the moment, we just don't know what happened. Beyond some very bare and stark facts, we don't know who was responsible. And, you know, until we know, let's all just try and keep an open mind. There are as many rumors circulating that he was killed by state forces as there are rumors circulating that he was killed by assassins sent by the mayor's office, as there are people saying that it was connected to a drug debt. So it could be any of these things. And I don't think it's really helpful to start deciding that just because something fits in with your pre-designed narrative, that you've got to accept it. So, you know, we see the same thing. I think you mentioned a lot last week, this idea that a lot of images come without context. Now, I didn't see the video that you're talking about, but it sounds eerily similar to a video which was investigated by Colombia Check 2 weeks ago, which is very similar. Two police on a motorcycle, they appear to shoot at a man and kill him. There's another video from a different angle which shows quite a different side of the story. I mean, it doesn't make the police look good, but they certainly weren't killing somebody. They were just going past and sorry, that's one of the dogs.
What did they say on this? Yeah.
Yeah, she's having a dream.
Okay.
What a strange little dog. So yeah, I mean, look, there's different things, and it's very difficult to know what's true and what's not. There are plenty of shocking videos out there. I mean, we don't need to be inventing new ones. And yeah, who knows where we're all going to end up. But I think it's really difficult. Again, it comes back to this point. Alexandra Pajares here is saying she doesn't think Security Index supports what we're saying. Now, it is true, Alexandra, that if you look over a very short period of time, so if you look over just the last 2 years, things do look very weird. But if you take a long view look at Colombia, you'll see that GDP is on a clear upwards path. Human Development Index ratings are on a clear upwards path. Gini is on a clear downwards path. And of course, you can pick holes in Gini and you can pick holes in the HDI. And I'm certainly not saying that they're infallible devices. But the simple truth of the matter is, apart from a little wobble with the weak peso recently, things have generally been going from good to better, and you can very clearly see that. I mean, I don't understand why this is difficult for many Colombians. You know, if you're a Colombian who is, let's say, 40 years of age, like I am, well, you know, you can remember the days when there were 25,000 murders a year. You know, you can remember the days when there were massacres happening monthly out in the campo. You know, when there was literally a proper armed insurgency going on. When, you know, we only, you know, look at the Copa America talk. You know, the last Copa America in Colombia in 2001, there were car bombs going off left, right and centre in the run-up to that tournament. Colombia of today is in a very, 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 very different situation.
Yeah, and of course, we suffer from ignorance in many regards. You know, we've been here 10 years or whatever, and Colombia has been generally peaceful. And I know people are going to look at now the gringos in their comfortable abodes or whatever, in their bubble in Bogota, and go out to the periphery and you'll see a different story. I'm not taking away from that at all. I mean, I know there's a case that exists too. And I had an Irish friend who had a finca. He owned land outside Santa Marta, and it was burnt to the ground in the last 3 years due to paramilitary activity, because the community decided they wouldn't pay a vacuna, as they call it, a bribe or whatever to these paramilitaries, or to pay their taxes. And yeah, they burnt down some of the place. So I know it exists and all that kind of stuff. But as Ollie, as you say, comparable like to what it was 20 years ago, we're in a much better place. But mentioning the periphery, we have to touch on Cali as well, because Cali's been a very special case for all the wrong reasons throughout this last 15, 16 days. And as you mentioned, Duque going there. But we've had indigenous issues, clashes between indigenous and gangs and groups of people in Cali. It just seems a complete mess down there, and it will probably take a little bit longer there to say, if we're thinking that things are settling down here in Bogota. I imagine it's a long way to go in Cali, from looking at it from a distance.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at sort of, informal roadblocks set up across the city, police and the military appear to have completely lost control of the situation. They seem to be at best reactive rather than proactive. Again, as you say, disinformation absolutely everywhere. I mean, Cali for years, I think a lot of people fixate on this image. I think Emma opens with this in her article. People fixate on this idea of Cali as being a kind of cultural center and, capital of salsa, and isn't it cool and fun and blah, blah, blah. And even, a lot of Colombians fall into that trap. I've never particularly liked Cali, and I've always thought it's on the verge of being a failed city. Let's not forget, Cali has almost as many homicides daily, or monthly is a better way to count it, as Bogota, even though it's a quarter of the size. That's how violent it is. Incredibly high levels of poverty, inequality very, 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 very high. And of course, ever-present cartel. I mean, that's the home of cartels in Colombia.
Can I make a point here, Ollie, that maybe a cynic, or if that's the right word in this context, but like, as you mentioned, it's got the same amount of homicides, same number of homicides per month as Bogota, but 4 times smaller. That this kind of stuff happens in Cali all the time, and now just in the chaos and confusion and the pictures we've seen, and it's kind of maybe spiraled into to those more hipster areas of Cali, and the locals have been turning a blind eye, or saying, well, if they're killing themselves, I don't care. But now that it's kind of gone into other areas and it's affecting other people who aren't involved in that, now that it's made national news, but on a day-to-day basis, these things were happening. So you could say it might be a good sign that now the focus is on Cali, and it's like, okay, we need to really sort this out. Now, again, we can say there's been plenty of areas and plenty of examples in Colombia in the past, and that hasn't happened. But do you get my point in that, this has been ongoing for decades, and just it's been ignored in many ways?
And I think it's charming that you think that Colombia might finally do something about the state of Cali.
Well, no, I was saying, I was saying, that was the optimist, not certainly me.
Medellin managed to bring itself back from the brink. There's no reason that I suppose that Cali can't do something similar. But yeah, it's a bleak situation right now, and don't forget, it took Medellin years to reinvent itself. There are no quick solutions here. There are no easy fixes. There's nothing Duque can announce, because it can't be sorted out in his presidency. Frankly, I doubt it will be sorted out by the time the next president is leaving. I would imagine that it's whoever wins in 2026 might be getting a stable Cali to deal with.
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay, well, just Alexandra in touch with us saying that the beauty about Colombia is that despite its political challenges, drug trafficking and all that, that the country has always had a healthy, almost positive economic situation.
And actually, I would say in many ways certainly because of the politics, but actually, drug trafficking hasn't been bad for the economy. There's no doubt about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the point can be made if some of it does go into health services and providing housing and things like that. Well, is that okay? And other people will say any sort of blood money, but what money is clean? That's a topic for another day. By the way, Alexandra, do put your thinking cap on. If you were president, if you were going to be in Casa de Nariño tomorrow and you could change a few things, what would you change? We're going to be talking about that very shortly. Angela as well. It wouldn't be a show without Angela, or Budget Sensei, getting in touch with us. The bubble burst in Cali. I also think there are still remnants of cartels. Well, remnants, I'd say there's probably more than that.
There's definitely not remnants,
yeah. Which don't necessarily make the news. Also, racism under the surface. Racism, Cali, that's interesting. Of course, not a local's perspective. Many factors have made the bubble burst. Yeah, I think it's kind of almost a perfect storm.
She does. I think actually that's a really important point. Look, it's no secret and never has been that areas like Chocó, Amazonas, well, not Amazonas itself, but the Amazonian departments, the greater Amazonas. Leticia is actually fairly well funded for strategic reasons. But Chocó, La Guajira, San Andrés, Providencia, again for strategic reasons. Cauca. These are departments that coincidentally are abandoned by the state and also have very large Afro-Colombian populations. There's no secret to that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, Alexandra's firing in the comments about what she'd do if she was president. We'll get to that shortly. Now, we did mention, and I think it's important to mention this. Some people might be going, "Oh, don't mention the pandemic, don't mention COVID," but obviously it's not gone off the news cycle, but many people aren't talking about it now.
Which is interesting because we're seeing, upwards of 500 people, die a day.
Yeah, that's what we had yesterday. It was, I think, the official figure yesterday was 400 and something. But yeah, so, and also on top of that, with apparently the UCI now, the ICU, whichever language you're using, UCI or ICU, pretty much in the country now close to capacity. But with all that, then on the other side, you have a Bogota that's more open than it has been for months in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, lockdown 11 isn't much different from how, well, as a Brit, it's a bit of a blast from the past. It's like going back to the old days. When I started drinking in Britain, very much there was a bell at 10:45 to say, all right, lads, last orders and sling your hook.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, Bogota is not really a very late city in general. So, curfew at 11 is pretty much on the nose for most people. No pico y cédula, great news, and no more, no more ley seca. Fantastic.
Yeah, of course, public transport has been affected, but that's the protests. If you wanted to get a Transmilenio yesterday after 6 o'clock, good luck. You won't get one. 8. Well, you wouldn't have got one at 6 o'clock in Puerto del Norte, I'll tell you that much, because there were none of them moving, and I think it was similar in other portales and big stations on the Transmilenio. But yeah, guys, it's pretty much business as usual, unless you're like a midnight reveler and likes to go to parties at 2 a.m. or something. Then you're in the wrong city anyway. You should go somewhere else. But yeah, kind of things just operating as if there is no pandemic. We should watch this space, because maybe if it is a sign that you mentioned, Ollie, that the protests now are, well, I mentioned it too, petering out here in Bogota, that maybe then we'll get an announcement in the next few days saying, okay, guys, we need to put the shoulders to the wheel here again. Let's see. Let us see. A quick one before we get into our president thing. Nothing to note of the Colombians in the Giro d'Italia or anything, no?
It depends how you look at it. Egan Bernal could be in quite a good position. He is sitting just just off the leaders. He's 16 seconds behind Attila, who's not going to stay up there for very long. So yeah, he's among the Bernal is among the leaders at the moment, among the favourites. But there's a lot of racing to be done.
Yeah, it's early days. This time next week, we should have a better indication, I'm sure. Quick one on football. I saw a headline in Blue Radio that there are calls for the semi-finals of the Liga Betplay to be postponed until the situation in the country settles down a little bit, because a lot of criticism with games that have gone on in the Copa Libertadores, like
Junior and River Plate, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and I think are America playing right now as well, and there's also issues there. Well, unsurprisingly enough, after everything we've been talking about with Cali and that. So mentioning that, and of course, it seems, final word though before we get to our big topic, but like the Copa America surely can't go ahead.
Who knows? I mean, maybe it's Colombia having another tilt at winning it by making their rivals not turn up again.
Maybe.
You know, it's the kind of behaviour you associate more with Argentina, but yeah, no, could maybe that's the tactic. I don't know. It's so hard to see. It seems to me insane that you would even consider having teams flying about between two countries. That just seems to. I could even get it in one country, but to be flying internationally in a region where there's particularly virulent strains spreading around, especially, from Brazil to Argentina, it just seems absolutely berserk. But
why? Was there another country brought into the mix after Argentina decided that they're not going to? Because Argentina have already decided they're out. So
has that been confirmed so far? I don't think it has.
I thought it was confirmed. I thought it was. Okay, well, I'm open, guys. People listening, check that one out quick. You can tell us. But yeah, anyway, it does seem ridiculous. To use rugby parlance, maybe you could have the Colombia probables against the possibles, and see whoever wins. Anyway, let's get on to the big topic today. This could be serious. It could be a bit of fun. Let's try and do a mix and match, I guess.
Well, we've got some already.
Yeah, we have. So, if you were president, what would you change in Colombia? What do you think needs changing or whatever?
Well, let's
know. But yeah, let's get into the ones we have.
Let's look at Alexandra. So Presidente Pajares, I think, is nice. I'm a big fan of alliteration. I have to say, Alexandra, register yourself next year and I won't vote for you. But that's only because I don't have a vote. I would tell her I'd encourage my students to vote for you, mainly because free and top quality education until university, fantastic. For a long time, I've said that I think Colombia should be taking money away from investment in public universities, and it should be putting it into primary and secondary state schooling. I don't understand the logic that says, let's invest lots of money in universities, but we're going to give students absolutely no preparation to get there, especially the poorest students.
Yeah, it's like I was saying the other day, it's like you put the chandelier in the house before you have the walls built. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't get it at all. It doesn't make any sense. And by the way, the national universities are excellent in Colombia. Underfunded, yes, absolutely. We could say that. I've heard plenty of horror stories from teachers there. Certainly not going to say they're perfect, but in terms of academic quality, fantastic. They do a very good job. Even so, I'd like to see more investment in primary and secondary education. Obviously, in a perfect world, we'd have both, but if I'm only getting one, I'd go for primary and secondary education every single time. Because, not everybody has to go to university, but everybody should be educated. She also mentions drug legalization. I flip-flop on this personally. Certainly, I just think the whole idea, marijuana being illegal, and by the way, I'm not a weed smoker. I don't particularly like marijuana as a drug. I don't particularly like people who take marijuana as a drug. I think it's just a very dull kind of way to spend your life, just sitting around monging out. But it just seems anachronistic in this day and age. I mean, you see and smell marijuana all over the city. It's gone from being a really, among the 50-year-olds, yeah, sure, marijuaneros are the devil, blah, blah, blah. But again, anybody under 40, it's just not a big deal. No one cares.
Yeah, and it's like this idea that people have sometimes, oh, well, if you legalize it, then everyone's going to do it. Like, it's practically legal here, and I'm not racing out to get a joint because it's just not my thing. I mean, I have my drugs of choice, and that's alcohol, really. So to kind of use the old Albert Einstein quote, the definition of stupidity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So this whole war on drugs, we've been going on about it. It's not really a war. So maybe that's the best way. Like, we've mentioned this before. If alcohol was a new drug on the scene, they'd be banning it left, right, and center. Oh, it's just that, obviously, yeah. So, like, everyone's got their poison, I guess. In life, to use an old quote of mine, life is suffering, Ollie. We're just trying to make the suffering that little bit less intense.
But Alexandra goes on to say here that she'd like to see an industrialization of the drug market. I mean, like I say, I flip-flop on this. I have moments where I'm very much in favor of that view. Just as you say, it's just wasted resources. There's no way you can fight a war against this. It's insane. On the other hand, I do sometimes look at the damage that certain drugs do, and I kind of think, yeah, if it was fully legal and even more available, it could be even more terrifying. Not sure.
Yeah, well, Alexandra, I put you in the direction just to get a counter point on that of Peter Hitchens. Search Peter Hitchens. Indeed, his last article in the Daily, the Mail on Sunday, you'll get an argument against legalization. Do check that out. Just, we like to provide balance here. Less privatization. Not that now we've already assumed that. It is Presidente Pajeres we're taking up all the time here, but less privatization, that won't go down too well with the libertarians and those of a more free market capitalist nature. And could you trust Colombian officialdom to run the show correctly?
Well, that is a big question, isn't it? If you're worried about corruption and, show me a Colombian who isn't, then yeah, do you want to be putting all these big things into their things? What I would personally say is that if you think the Colombian state is corrupt, wait till you get a look at Colombian business practices. You might get a bit of a shock. So yeah, I'd say they're probably going to be no more. I don't think the state's going to be any more corrupt than a bunch of spivvy business people. Just off the top of my head, who would I like to see for privatization? Avianca. I'd like to see all the public transport brought properly under nationalization, so that we could have the SITP service properly fully nationalized instead of this nationalized for blame, privatized for profit nonsense. I think I would very much like to see Aqueducto, EAAB. I'd like to see them fully nationalized.
Okay. By the way, I just say Alexandra was asking, if you can't trust the private sector here, then who can you trust?
As we say,
but I mean, come on. Is Externado any more trustworthy than Nacional, the Universidad Nacional? Sorry, shouldn't have said.
It's officially less trustworthy. We are the university with the most egresados that have been convicted of corruption in the country. Officially, we don't like to talk about that much.
There you go. Of course, privatization, though, I will say, would work. And this is where I think third week in a row I'm referring to my old friend Leopoldo Ferguson. But in terms of security, you've got at least more than double the number of private security than police officers. Yeah. So, yeah, in that sector. But that does bring us on nicely to police because, Ollie, you mentioned in our chat, and I put this in the in the what's coming up on the show in the groups on Facebook, and your idea of wanting the police to actually enforce the laws that they're supposed to enforce caused a lot of debate, to be honest. Like, some people were almost offended by kind of, because of the times we're in, and kind of saying, "Oh, how are you saying that when the police are killing innocent protesters left, right, and centre?"
That's not their fucking job. Yeah.
No, just let me say. Yeah. Let me a second. I was going to say, if you do have an issue, refer back. If you're just joining us, refer back to the first half of the show, and we touched on a lot of that. Yes, and it is true. In fairness, now, because Ollie's annoyed, but I will. But what exactly do you mean in terms of? I did give an example, but that seemed to go over some people's heads. That enforce the laws that they should enforce.
No, just start doing their job properly. And when I say doing their job properly, what I mean is, I give you a really good example here, which is that I live just down the road from a big police station, well, medium-sized police station. There's a police station on the Tracey with 39, just down the road. Very well known, Teusaquillo police station. Ironically, it's in Chapinero, but shush. Anyway, outside that police station, there's a man, a policeman, always a man, never put a policewoman out there. He's got his gun, he's ready to go, serious stuff. Now, without a shadow of a doubt, that policeman will never walk down and touch any of the drivers. Drivers go straight in front of him. Sometimes there are police people sitting around with their motorbikes, laughing, having a joke. And people feel that they can just go past the white line, they can skip a red, they can park in the middle of a zebra crossing because they missed the red light and couldn't get away with it, all those kind of things. Now, to me, that's absolutely astonishing. Because absolutely the police should be intervening in there. And you don't have to make an arrest. You don't need to take the person's car away, but you need to stop them and say, hey, what are you doing? Don't take the piss. What do you think you're doing? You've got to get back behind that white line. Oh, yeah, but I'm only over the line by a couple of inches. Doesn't matter. You can't do it in front of us. Get the fuck back or we are arresting you. Now, you don't want to go to the US standard where you've got a really antagonistic and aggressive police force, but you do want to have that thing where people say, you know what, I can't really take the piss. One of the things I find really surprising, people, there's a new police code, and everyone says, oh, isn't it terrible in the new police code? Isn't it terrible? People can be fined for peeing in the street. People can be fined for having dogs off leashes. But people pee in the street in front of police officers, nothing happens. People have their dogs off leash in front of police officers, nothing happens. People break the law consistently. Look at all the videos online of, that have these dramatic statements like, hay personas robando en el centro y los policías dicen nada. And it's literally, there's a video of somebody being pickpocketed 5 yards away from a police officer. And you just think, come on, do your job,
Are you kind of bringing to mind a mild broken windows theory approach?
Yes, the soft broken windows. Yeah, absolutely. But the thing about broken windows, incidentally, that was never meant to be a policing plan. That was always designed as the idea being that the community itself would step in. If there was a broken window in your property, that you would step in to sort it out. If there was a broken window in an abandoned property, that it would be reported and sorted out by civil authorities.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I agree, though, because it is this kind of idea that people feel they can kind of act with impunity just because there's no consequences for those
but it's random. That's often there absolutely is no consequence. But actually, I'd say it's random because the other flip side of that is because the police don't do their job properly. That's why they end up going around killing people, because they don't have an idea how to do their job properly. They're not trained properly to do it, and they're not experienced at doing it. They've got no experience of dealing with antagonistic and problematic situations because they never do it when the stakes are low. And it means that when the stakes are high, they, depending on how cynical you are, either make tremendous errors that end up costing people a lot, or they maliciously go out of their way to attack. I mean, maybe a better way to put it would be not. I don't believe necessarily the police should be enforcing every rule willy-nilly. I think the police should act professionally. I'd like to see the police acting professionally. And whatever that takes, if that means sacking the entire command structure, fine, do it.
Yeah, well, Anglis got in there with a comment that I think is well on point in terms of a widespread culture of bribing there, which is true. I've kind of semi-experienced it as well with the police here. Does it happen in Ireland? No, I wouldn't say not on the same sort of scale anyway. One thing you mentioned, and it is kind of a bit of a bugbear of mine. I did write a story a few weeks ago called "It's a Dog's Life in Colombia." That the dogs just kind of roaming free and nobody takes responsibility for them. Again, it's semi-policing issue, but also a cultural issue in terms of it's your dog, look after it. I mean, especially if it's one that might be prone to attack humans or at least make them very uncomfortable when they're in public places. I mean, it's a different thing if it's protecting your own private property, but when it's on a public road, because it's not on a leash or whatever, not being looked after. So I would certainly like to get that situation sorted out.
Yep, but again, as a dog owner, fully support that.
I don't. Oh, sorry. Alexandra is saying there she misses Switzerland because we're talking about all this utopian almost style place.
But again, so if you're worried about corruption, bloody hell, Switzerland should not be your model. Christ almighty, Switzerland, corruption in Switzerland is off the scale bad. It's just not, it doesn't manifest itself in your day-to-day life. I think that's the nice thing. As long as it's kept on the, on the shores of Lake Geneva, it's fine. But, their banking system,
Yeah, well, and I was going to say, when it's done with men in suits as well, that's not corruption, really, is it? Kind of these posh men driving lovely cars.
I hear you that the National Socialist Party is bad, but also everyone's got a right to put their gold somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. One thing I wanted to mention, because I did mention it in the introduction, and maybe our Colombian viewers will correct me, because I don't think this is the case, but if you're working for a private company and you're regularly asked to go beyond the call of duty, like there's just no real legal backing there that, you get time in lieu for working more than 8 hours a day, or you go over your 40-hour-a-week contract. Nothing, like you get tokenism.
That's Uribe's fault.
Okay. Well, Uribe, if you're listening, why did you do that? I'll give the example though. Like, thankfully, it didn't happen that often with me being the foreigner in the company. But when I worked in, I'll name and shame, with DDB Worldwide Colombia Marketing Agency, practically every second day, if not sometimes for the whole week, guys who were doing especially digital media, videos and things like that, they'd be working until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. The bonus pay was a 10,000 coupon to be spent in Grupo Éxito. So you couldn't even use the joke like, don't spend it all in the one shop now, because you did have to spend it all in the one shop. If you went into Éxito, you had to use 10,000.
What's it, if they're working till midnight, what's it costing them to get home?
Oh, you would get a taxi, in fairness, yeah. They would. There was a taxi service, so that was covered. Only twice I had to. Once I was working till 1 a.m. in the morning. But yeah, like this, like 10,000. I was kind of going, like in Ireland, that'd be 6 or 7 hours of like double time or whatever, or you'd get a couple of days in lieu off. But
I don't have direct experience of Ireland, but certainly in England, I think the average Londoner works something like 2.5 hours. No, actually, that must have been in the city. Certainly in the city, they work incredible extra hours with no extra remuneration. But of course, they're over remunerated at the same time.
Especially in the banking. Yeah.
But people in Britain work quite a lot of unpaid, famously quite a lot of unpaid overtime. You'd want France as an example of, nobody lifting a finger if they're not getting paid extra. They're very good.
I'm not saying, this isn't kind of a don't want to work kind of job. I prefer to be independent myself anyway. I've kind of learned that lesson. But yeah, just this kind of expectancy that, Felix is going to stay in the office until 2 a.m. in the morning and, we'll give him his 10,000 coupon. Like, it's almost an insult to 10,000 coupon in many ways.
Yeah, no, that's farcical.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? If you're saying they're working till midnight, what is that? 7 hours worth of overtime? You're giving them 1,000 an hour, 1,500? Come on.
Yeah. And also, I think it was the CEO of Shopify, but there are other studies actually, many studies backing this up, that in terms of creativity, and I was talking about a marketing agency where a lot of it is, of course, the creative side, that like 4 hours a day is kind of the max, 4 to 5 hours for a person. Like after that, so even an 8-hour day in standard times, that's fine if it's kind of repetitive work that doesn't really require much thinking. You're on an assembly line or something that's just monotony. But jobs that require a lot of thought, deep thinking, like you just can't be sat in front of a computer for 8 hours or whatever. Like it's just not healthy. As Noam Chomsky put it, like we replace slavery now with waged labor. And what is the difference? Anyway, that's a debate for another day. One thing, again, guys, if those who haven't, well, Angela, we're still looking for your what would you do if you were president? Another quick one. Well, no, because I want to get to your one. You mentioned yesterday the banks, because there are a few things here that
let's bring the banks out of the. This is all very easily solvable stuff. There's no reason this can't be done. Okay, look, I'm saying, you have to get rid of all the police officers in the country, the management. Look, realistically, that probably can't be done. Banks, well, okay, probably it can't be because of the influence that people like Sarmiento wield. But come on, man. Come on, it's 2021, and I'm only just being offered a proper debit card. Like an actual MasterCard, not a MasterCard debit like a little child. I had one of those when I was 13 years old. Don't start treating me like a bloody child. And then, other ridiculous things about the banks. I'm paying the banks. What? What the hell is this? Hang on, what? I'm paying you for the privilege of you investing my money by lending it to other people and claiming interest on it. Sorry, what the bloody hell is the logic here? I come from, British banks are notoriously lax. That's a well-known fact. So it is a bit of an extreme culture shock. I suppose if you came from some other countries, you wouldn't notice it as much. But, come on, I'm just used. What's all this about charging me to use a different ATM? Sorry, what? 2021? Get out of town.
Well, I'll give you one example on that.
Charges all over the place. I used to be charged for different departments. I used to be charged for taking out money more than 4 times in a month. It's absolutely insane. It's partly treating me like a child, but it's partly just this. You expect a bank to be money grubbing, but I think the thing here is what really astonishes me about it all is actually. They're meant to be using my money to invest in other people. And they don't do that because they love taking money in. They won't lend money out. They're so risk averse that, it's incredibly hard. Mortgages require a 30 or 40% deposit, things like that. It's in the dark ages, Brendan.
Well, I've spoken to a few Colombians about this, and I used to teach in Davivienda, and I taught a few high-up executives in that bank in their headquarters out on the Avenida 26. But this kind of whole concept of, we're keeping your money safe. So, you should be happy to pay for that privilege.
Yeah. So thank you in the 1800s, where there literally had to be a strong box. But come on, that's not.
But there's one other little thing that annoys me with the banks, because I do a few freelance projects every now and again, and if it's with a new company and I have to register as a contractor or whatever with them, and it's like, and your bank, and I'll go, yeah, well, my bank account is Banco Caja Social, this number, blah blah blah, and they go, no, but we need the banking certificate, a piece of paper from the bank that's within 6 months saying that my bank account is with that bank. But I'm not going to give you, I'm not giving you Ollie Pritchard's bank account. I want the money.
And anyway, even if you are doing that, what do they fucking get? They're just paying the money out. They don't care where it goes. Do you know what I mean? Jesus Christ. And I don't understand that in the slightest. That's absolutely bizarre. I know exactly what you mean. Not to mention the little fiddly details. Make sure you get your cedula blown up to 150%. Oh.
We're kind of slightly off topic, but these are things we would change if we were president. Angela mentioned the elimination of Quattro per Mil.
What is she talking about? That was a temporary measure. Surely that doesn't still exist. What are you going to tell me? Yeah, nice one, Angela. Pull the other one. Yeah. What are you going to tell me that? Are you going to tell me that SETP Provisional still exists? Yeah, good one.
But am I mistaken in saying that the Quattro per Mil is only on your second bank account? Is that not correct?
No, Quattro per Mil is on all financial transactions. Okay. Well, obviously not any cash ones, which actually is one of the good things about 4xMil. But of course, we're moving to more and more digital stuff now, so it's harder to avoid.
Okay. A little bit of a cheeky comment there as well from Angela. She said she's wise enough not to be president when she's just not ready for the job, like maybe perhaps a certain incumbent. Of course, Duque is listening and taking notes, so you'll have to take that one back, Angela. We are running out of time, but there's a quick one that does kind of bug me. People, regular viewers will know I'm a big panaderia man, but I always like my perico in a pocillo, in a porcelain cup.
Oh,
yeah. We've talked about waste and everything here before. I wrote a story years ago called The Disposable Republic of Colombia. Like people who ask for it in a disposable cup, they should be charged more, or just do not have them available, or bring your own, whatever. Like what is, when you're sitting down and they have porcelain cups there, plenty of them for all the customers, and yet people insist on having their drink in a disposable cup. It just doesn't make sense.
Plastic bags as well. Yeah, there's loads of people that will be, buying a chocolate bar and putting it in a plastic bag. You think surely that can go in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. They seem to love them. I mean, I remember there is one kind of mentality with the plastic bag things which I do understand. That people don't want to buy bin bags, so they'll use the plastic bags as bin bags as well. I can understand the logic in some way. Alexandra is saying the whole disposable culture is because of for sanitary reasons. Now, in fairness, when I was in a panaderia in La Perseverancia during the pandemic, and they used to always give me my coffee in a porcelain cup, and they told me, "Oh, we're not doing it anymore because of COVID-19." Because I'm going to go, well, that doesn't really seem to make much sense to me anyway. Like what, you're telling me you don't wash the cups afterwards then properly? So, but it is boiling hot water. But anyway, Alexandra's mentioning that about people don't trust the washing techniques. We're getting it all now. We're finding out why. Maybe if we were president, Ollie.
The sanitary reasons thing is, how often, again, but it comes back to the same problem. How often do you change the bag in your toilet bin? Are you changing that daily as well? Because if you're doing your shopping daily and picking up a plastic bag, you're going to find yourself growing out of control much quicker. So that's an interesting point. But are we at time? Are we? Okay.
Yeah, our producer is frantically scribbling to us here, saying we have to go. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for that. Okay, until next week. Bye.